kids. I'm glad you were paying attention. That's good. All right, let's turn in our Bibles to 2 Samuel. 2 Samuel. And chapter number 2. All right, we're going to have to read 3 chapters here. Chapter 2, 3, and 4. Y'all ready? Ready for that? Okay, we won't read all of it then. All right? So pay attention to me skipping around, all right? So 2 Samuel, chapter number 2, beginning with verse number 1. The Bible says, "And it came to pass after this, that David inquired of the Lord, saying, Shall I go up into any of the cities of Judah? And the Lord said unto him, Go up. And David said, Whither shall I go up? Where should I go? Where specifically? And God said, Unto Hebron. Unto Hebron. To city southwest of Bethlehem. So it's in the area of Judah. Okay. So David went up thither, and his 2 wives also, Ahinoam the Jezreelitess, and Abigail, Nabal's wife, the Carmelite, and his men that were with him did David bring up, every man with his household, and they dwelt in the cities of Hebron. And the men of Judah came, and there they anointed David king over the house of Judah." And so David is anointed king by the men of Judah over the house of Judah. Okay, that's what that's telling us. Now skip down to verse number 8. But, there's a problem. But Abner. Abner's a very interesting character in this story. But Abner, the son of Ner, captain of Saul's host, captain of Saul's army, took Ishbosheth, the son of Saul, and brought him over to Mahanaim. And Mahanaim was across the Jordan River. It was pretty far to the east. And made him king over Gilead, and over the Asherites, and over Jezreel, and over Ephraim, and over Benjamin, and over all Israel. Ishbosheth, Saul's son, was 40 years old when he began to reign over Israel, and reigned 2 years. Not a very long reign. But the house of Judah followed David. And the time that David was king in Hebron over the house of Judah was 7 years and 6 months. Now, just so you understand what's the bigger picture, David was actually king fully for 40 years. It's just telling you he was king in Hebron for 7 years. He was king in Jerusalem for 33. Okay? Just so you understand the math here. So he was king in Hebron over the house of Judah 7 years and 6 months. It says verse number 12. "And Abner the son of Ner and the servants of Ishbosheth the son of Saul went out from Mahanaim to Gibeon, which is northwest of Jerusalem. And Joab the son of Zeruiah," that's another interesting character. Remember that guy. Joab the son of Zeruiah. There's 3 sons mentioned in 2 Samuel of Zeruiah. And you'll find their names out here in just a minute. But Joab, Abishai, and Asahel. Just so you know, there's another time later on where David's having run for his life. A guy named Shimei comes out and starts cussing him. And one of David's men says, "Let me take his head off his shoulders." That's Abishai. That's Joab's brother. Okay? So these 3 brothers are pretty feisty. It says, "And Joab the son of Zeruiah," verse 13, "and the servants of David went out and met together by the pool of Gibeon, and they sat down, the one on the one side of the pool, and the other on the other side of the pool." So Abner's on one side, Joab's on the other. "And Abner said to Joab, Let the young men now arise and play before us." In other words, duel. And Joab said, "Let them arise." Then there arose and went over by number 12 of Benjamin, which pertained to Ishbosheth the son of Saul, and 12 of the servants of David. And they caught every one his fellow by the head, and thrust his sword in his fellow's side, so they fell down together. Wherefore that place was called Helkath Hazarim, which is in Gibeon. And there was a very sore battle that day, and Abner was beaten, and the men of Israel before the servants of David. If we were to read the rest of this chapter, you would find out Abner is running for his life. The third brother of Joab and Abishai, his name is Asahel. The rest of the chapter is about him running down Joab. Joab's trying to tell him, you better back off, leave me alone. Asahel won't do it. Asahel was a very fast man. It says he was as fast as a deer. So he was known for this. He was running down Joab, and finally Joab thrust his spear behind him, stabbed him underneath the 5th rib, and Asahel fell down dead. Joab never forgets that. And that's very important for later on. In chapter 3. Chapter 3 is I'm going to summarize this because we're not going to read it all. But in chapter 3, Joab doesn't forget that. Okay, he remembers that. And he winds up killing Abner. And I believe the Bible even points out he stabs him under the 5th rib, if I remember correctly. Something about the 5th rib. But Joab kills Abner. How do you figure Joab dies later on in the book of 1 Kings when Solomon is reigning? You live by the sword. You die by the sword. Solomon, David's son, winds up killing Joab later on, having him put to death. Isn't that something? Just that, what a tumultuous life. What a up and down sort of life. But later on, Joab kills Abner. Look at chapter 3, verse 1. Now there was long war between the house of Saul and the house of David. But, notice this, and this is going to be our text verse for today. But David waxed stronger and stronger, and the house of Saul waxed weaker and weaker. David waxed stronger and stronger, and the house of Saul waxed weaker and weaker. Skip down to verse 17 of chapter 3. And Abner had communication with the elders of Israel, saying, Ye sought for David in times past to be king over you. Now then do it. For the Lord hath spoken of David, saying, By the hand of my servant David, I will save my people Israel out of the hand of the Philistines and out of the hand of all their enemies. And so Abner switches sides. He goes under David's banner. And then verses 22 on are about Joab slaying Abner. Let me see if it said, yeah, under the 5th rib, verse 27. Joab gets him under the 5th rib. Skip to chapter 4. Verse 1. When Saul's son Ishbosheth heard that Abner was dead in Hebron, his hands were feeble, and all the Israelites were troubled. And Saul's son had 2 men that were captains of bands. The name of the one was Baanah, and the name of the other Rechab, the sons of Rimmon the Beerothite, of the children of Benjamin. For Beeroth also was reckoned to Benjamin, and the Beerothites fled to Gittaim, and were sojourners there until this day. Jonathan, Saul's son, had a son that was lame of his feet. He was 5 years old when the tidings came of Saul and Jonathan out of Jezreel. And his nurse took him up and fled. And it came to pass, as she made haste to flee, that he fell and became lame, and his name was Mephibosheth. And the sons of Rimmon, the Beerothite, Rechab and Baanah, went and came about the heat of the day, so about the middle of the day, picture noon, 1 o'clock, to the house of Ishbosheth, who lay on a bed at noon. And they came thither into the midst of the house as though they would have fetched wheat. So they're pretending to do something else. And they smote him, notice this, under the 5th rib. Well, everybody's getting it under the 5th rib. Over and over. And Rechab and Baanah, his brother, escaped. For when they came into the house, he lay on his bed, in his bedchamber, and they smote him, and slew him, and beheaded him, and took his head, and gat them away through the plain all night. And they brought the head of Ishbosheth unto David to Hebron, and said to the king, Behold, the head of Ishbosheth, the son of Saul, thine enemy, which sought thy life. And the Lord hath avenged my lord the king this day of Saul and of his seed. So here's these two captains of Ishbosheth. They go into Ishbosheth's house while he's taking a nap. They stab him under the fifth rib. They cut his head off. They take his head to David, and they think they're going to be rewarded. Does that remind you of anything? Doesn't that remind you of a guy in the first chapter who brings Saul's crown and his bracelets, and he's like, surely I'm going to get a reward. Well, look at verse 9. And David answered Rechab and Baanah his brother, the sons of Rimmon, and said unto them, As the Lord liveth, who hath redeemed my soul out of all adversity, when one told me, saying, Behold, Saul is dead, thinking to have brought good tidings, I took hold of him and slew him in Ziklag. Who thought that I would have given him a reward for his tidings? How much more am I going to do, when wicked men have slain a righteous person in his own house upon his bed? Shall I not therefore now require his blood of your hand, and take you away from the earth? And David commanded his young men, and they slew them, and cut off their hands and their feet, and hanged them up over the pool in Hebron. But they took the head of Ishbosheth and buried it in the sepulchre of Abner in Hebron. Well, what an interesting account. A lot of things happening here in these first few chapters, isn't there? Such is what happens when there's political turmoil. All kinds of crazy things happen. In this case, the tribe of Judah anointed David king over them. They were the biggest tribe, so that was a big deal. It would be kind of like, okay, if the United States kind of rebelled, let's say got into a rebellion or something, and let's say maybe, I don't know, Texas decided to anoint someone president, and Texas banded together with, let's say, like all of the South and Southwest, except for California, because they're not going to agree with Texas on anything. But let's say they did that. That would be a real problem, because Texas has a lot of population. Let's say they threw Florida into that too. And let's say New York and California couldn't agree either, and so it was split into three, and Texas would be a real problem. Right? You see what I'm saying? In that scenario. Well, here, Ishbosheth is the son of Saul. He's kind of the next in line, and Joab says, no, we're going to go with Ishbosheth. So it's basically a civil war. I mean, it just breaks out into a civil war. Tribes versus tribes. Benjamin kind of being the major tribe of Ishbosheth. Saul was of the tribe of Benjamin. Okay, that would be kind of the background there. And then you've got David and the tribe of Judah basically taking on everybody else. And it worked out pretty good for David in the end. But I have to tell you, when David was first looking at this problem, it might have been worrying him a little bit. It might have caused him some concern. This was a tumultuous time, a pretty scary time. And back in chapter 3, verse number 1, it says, David waxed stronger and stronger. The house of Saul waxed weaker and weaker. I looked up the word wax, because when I think of wax, I think of candle wax, or I think of earwax. Yuck. That's the only two waxes I know of. Is there another? Oh, car wax. I never wax my car, so I don't think about it. But obviously there's wax. So I never think of it in this context. I never think, okay, so there, I never use the word wax like this. But if you look it up in the 1828 dictionary, wax means to increase in size, to grow, to become larger, to pass from one state to another, to become as to wax strong. And so that's what the word, that's how people used to use the word. So he waxed stronger and stronger. Basically, he grew and grew and grew over time. It wasn't overnight. How many of us want to be in shape overnight? Right? Yeah. I'd like to take just a magic pill. I'd like to wake up skinny. That's what I'd like to do. It doesn't seem to work. If I want to lose some weight, if I want to lose this basketball, as my daughter Kaylee calls it all the time because she's copying Miss Louise, who called this a basketball. If I want to lose this basketball, I need to play some basketball. I need to do some running. I need to do some running, basically running is the best way, and then once I've ran enough of it off, maybe I can actually do a sit-up. But sit-ups will help this go away, right? If I could summarize, basically hard work. If I want my arms to get stronger, I've got to lift weights, and I've got to do push-ups. I've got to do pull-ups. If I want to work my arms. If I want my leg muscles to get stronger, well, you really got to do a lot of running. You can do some bench presses. You can sit down on this machine they've got and put some weight on the side and push with your legs. And you can gradually, over time, add weights. You understand? You can gradually. You start off, you can say, I think I can do a 45-pounder on that side, a 45-pounder on that side. Let's try that. Oh, yeah, I did that pretty easy. Put another 45-pounder on each side. Ooh, I'm feeling that. You do that over a couple of weeks, and then you go, you know what? I want to add a 10-pounder to each side. Let's try that. Or I want to try a 20-pounder. That's just how you would do it. You would have to do it over time. You would have to apply yourself. It would take time. It would take a struggle. But eventually, you'd wax stronger and stronger. The boys they've been running them pretty hard in football practice. They've been running them. They're making them run backwards uphill. I look at that and I'm like, I'm so glad I'm not having to do that. I was sitting in the bleachers at the stadium watching them practice, and I can remember running up the stadium bleachers, those concrete bleachers. I don't enjoy that, because if you mess up, if you miss your step, it hurts. Lots of pain coming your way. You're going to hit your ribs on the concrete. It's not very much fun. So you basically learn you don't want to mess up. But I can remember running up and down bleachers. I can remember doing that. I can't imagine doing that now. I think it would kill me. Like the first 2 steps would kill me. But the boys came home. Their practice got canceled Thursday, so we came home and practiced a little bit. I woke them up Friday morning, and we got out and ran around the building several times. They ran several. I jogged a few. Brother Mark, I jogged a few. And then, I told them, we're just going to jog. Right? I started them up. I said, y'all jog a couple, get your leg muscles going, get them warmed up, jog a couple, and then you'll run one flat out. You'll just push it as hard as you can. Well, they did that. So they knew what jogging was. They enjoyed the jogging ones. They didn't enjoy the flat out ones.
Yeah, they did.
Okay, they might have. Anyway, because they're crazy. But they enjoyed the jogging one. I could tell they were all jogging in a group. Nobody was trying to go, well, then I jogged one with them, and they're all trying to beat me. What is that? Like, they had no problem jogging when it was just the kids, but as soon as they're, Dad, I'm going to beat you, and they took off. So I had to race them.
And then we won.
Yeah, I about died. I about died on the front porch out there. I'd go sit down. But no, I had fun. I had fun with them. And so I did that once this week, and then I completely forgot to do that yesterday. Forgot to do that. But I'm going to try to start doing that more with them, because I need it. I need to do that. Now, I think I jogged 3 or 4 laps. And then I think I ran 1 or 2 really full out, because they dared me. I wasn't going to run full out the first day. The next week, I'm going to try to add a lap. And then maybe the next, and maybe even 2 laps next week. Maybe I'll add a lap the first 3 days, and then maybe add another lap. And then the week after that, I'm going to try to add a little more. Now, I said I'm going to try. Please, I'm not you hear me. I'm not standing up here saying, I promise I'm going to do this. I didn't say that. I said I'm going to try. I did legitimately forget yesterday. It was legitimate. It wasn't like I remembered and I didn't want to do it. I just forgot. But I'm going to try to remember and do that. You say, what are you doing, Brother Joe? I'm trying to build it up. I'm trying to build up to it. I'm trying to work up to it. Trying to get back in the groove. I'm 37. I'm not 7 anymore. And when I was 7, I can remember riding my bike all over this county. All over. What was Mom and Dad thinking letting me do that? I mean, several miles at a time. I can remember riding my bike up and down railroad tracks. They didn't know it, but I did. I can remember that. Man, now jogging around the building one time, we took off from the front here, about halfway around this side. I was like, what have I done? The thought in my mind, what am I doing right now? This is insane. But anyway, I'm going to try to build up to it. And guess what I'm trying to do? I'm trying to wax stronger and stronger. That's what I want to do. I want to try to work my muscles out. I want to try to get back in the groove. I want to wax stronger and stronger. Waxing takes time. It's a process, and you basically add a little bit at a time. There's a scene from a movie where this guy is walking with a kid, and they're carrying firewood together. And the guy has a lot more firewood. Let's say he has, I can't remember, but let's say 6 or 7 logs of firewood in his arm. The kid has about 2, you know. Well, the man starts taking a stick and placing it on the boy's stack, just one at a time. He places one, and the boy kind of, he struggles for a minute, and he catches his balance, and he keeps going. And then the grown man, puts one more on it. And the boy kind of struggles for a minute, and then he just keeps going. And the man is watching the boy. He's paying attention. He doesn't want to overload the boy. So he's just doing one stick at a time. You see what I'm saying? So he doesn't want to overload. It's not like he's taking his whole load and saying, here you go, boy. He's not doing that. He's being gentle about laying it on the boy. He's being careful. He's taking his time. It's a process. And you say, man, I can't believe that man hates that boy. I can't believe that man despises that boy so much. I can't believe that man doesn't like that boy. Oh, on the contrary, that man actually loves the boy. Later on in the movie, he's willing to die for the boy. That man loves the boy. Well, then why is he putting more burden on? Oh, could it be that he's trying to build the boy? Could it be that he's trying to build him over time? He's not trying to break him. He's not trying to harm him. He's trying to build the boy, right? Don't you see it? It's beautiful. It's a beautiful picture of love. It's very interesting to me that because the grown man loves the boy, it's not even his child, but because the grown man loves the child and cares about the child, he's willing to put a little more burden on the child and grow the child. Do you see what I'm saying? See the picture? And that boy, get this, is going to wax stronger and stronger. David had strong resistance to his throne. This was not a game. These were serious battles. This was a civil war. It was a big deal. This was no joke. These guys were killing each other. This is Abner killing Asahel, who, by the way, it turns out Joab, Asahel, and Abishai, I believe later on, spoiler alert, they're David's cousins. This is your own cousin getting killed. This is serious stuff. It's not a game. And to add to that, they're from the same area. They're from Bethlehem. These would have been hometown boys. They grew up together. These would have been boys that went to high school together. And they're dying. It's serious stuff. David had serious resistance to his throne. Very dangerous time. It didn't stop David. It didn't stop him. He knew the Lord had it in God's plan for him to be king. He trusted God. He stuck with the Lord. He cleaved to the Lord. And because he did, because he cleaved to the Lord, he waxed stronger and stronger. It wasn't the absence of problems. It wasn't the absence of burdens. It wasn't perfect life. It wasn't, I got anointed king by Judah and now life will be perfect. It was nothing like that. It was battles. It was serious business. Life was a serious thing. It wasn't a game to him. And it didn't stop him. It didn't stop him because he trusted God. To the contrary, all this resistance, instead of breaking David, wound up making him stronger and stronger. He waxed stronger and stronger. There's another picture of this where the Egyptians are beating the Israelites in Exodus chapter 1. They start making their burden even harder and harder. It says the Israelites start becoming stronger and stronger and start having more and more babies. It actually blessed them. If you've ever watched the movie Ben-Hur or read the book Ben-Hur, it's about a guy who's a Jew at the time of Jesus. He's a man named Ben-Hur, which means the son of Hur. Not her as in H-E-R, it's her as in H-U-R. It was a name. Okay, but it's about a man who was a Jew, and he gets enslaved by the Romans. He winds up becoming what's called a galley slave. In other words, he would row one of the Roman boats, and their life expectancy was incredibly short. Like, they didn't expect you to make it over like 2 years in that situation. Most people didn't. Well, he was on that boat for like 5 years. And the captain of the ship said, "What is going on with this guy?" And liked him. He wound up saving the captain of the ship in the story, and he winds up getting to go back to Jerusalem, and he winds up seeing the man that put him in prison. He winds up seeing him die, and all these things, and it works out really well. All these things that were meant to break the man wound up making him stronger and stronger and stronger. That's all it did. He waxed stronger and stronger. The author of that book was a Civil War general. He fought for the Union. He fought under Grant. His name was Lew Wallace. Became governor of New Mexico after the Civil War. He was an atheist. He decided he would research and find out everything he could about Jesus Christ. He wound up becoming a believer and wrote the book Ben-Hur after all of his research. That's the author of the book. Became a believer. He was going to research Jesus and refute him. He was going to show everyone why they were so stupid for believing in him. It wound up completely. See, he was going to attack Jesus. Jesus just became stronger and stronger in his mind. In the church age, at the beginning of the church age, when the devil decided he was going to start attacking Christians physically and from the outside, when the Roman government started attacking them, did it snuff us out? Did it snuff genuine Christians? No. It actually made them stronger. They spread. The gospel spread. The gospel got stronger. It went all over the earth. What caused that? Persecution caused that. People attacking Christians caused that. What the devil meant for breaking David, the Lord used to build David. And the Lord allowed it. Kind of like that father, that loving father, taking that piece of wood, placing it on the board. That loving father. Not to overwhelm the boy. One piece at a time. One piece at a time. I have not, I don't know why I did. I decided to sit down and watch this I guess a documentary on Mean Joe Green. Oh yeah. I thought about sending it to you, Brother Mark. I thought about sending a link to you. It was like 45 minutes. I don't normally take that long. If I catch a video, it's usually like 5 minutes long, 10 minutes long, something like that. I just don't have a lot of time for that. But I decided one night that popped up in the suggestion. I was like, you know what? I do want to know more about Mean Joe Green. He's interesting to me. I just knew he was a really good football player. That's what I knew. I knew that he was a Steeler when they won 4 Super Bowls. I knew that about him. I also knew that he has a really cool name like Joe. So I wanted to know more about him. I just wanted to learn more. That dude is way more interesting than I ever thought. He grew up in a really hard life. Really hard life as a child. Got beat up pretty much every day at school. There was one kid named Speedy that was on the football team with him that beat him up every day. And Speedy was 2 or 3 years older than him, but they were the same size, and so it made Speedy look good when he could beat him up. Well, finally, one day his mom gave him $5 for insurance for the football team. Speedy stole it. And Joe Green said, and that's not even his real name. His real name is Charles Edward Green. But Joe Green said, "You stole my $5. Speedy said, "Yeah, I did. What are you going to do about it?" And another one, Joe's friends said, and Joe beat him all over the stadium, and nobody messed with Joe anymore. Just beat him up one way and down the other. Didn't have to fight anymore after that. But his name was Charles Edward. His aunt gave him the nickname Joe because Joe Louis was the heavyweight boxing champion the year he was born. So that's where he got the nickname Joe. Joe Green was so mean on the football field. And that's where he said he kind of had all those memories, all that anger that was pent up from when he was a child, and he would just unleash it on the football field. He said it was okay to do it there. And he said he just enjoyed beating people up on the football field, and that's he was really good at it. He went to North Texas University. You know what they're called? What their nickname is? North Texas Mean Green. They were the North Texas Eagles. They renamed the mascot after Mean Joe Green. He was that good. The Steelers took him 4th overall, and he was sad. The Steelers were awful. They had missed the playoffs for 25 years straight. They were terrible. You couldn't have went to a worse situation. Within 6 years, Mean Joe Green, and they had some other good draft picks, but Mean Joe Green had turned that organization around. He had turned around their whole way of thinking. It made them mentally tough, and they won 4 Super Bowls in 6 years. The next 6 years, they won 4 Super Bowls. Just astonishing. Everybody says Joe Green is the reason we won. Everybody on that team, everybody says Joe Green. He was the pallbearer at his coach's funeral. That's how special he was to his coach. He was the only player that was a pallbearer. The owner of the Steelers got inducted into the Hall of Fame. Joe Green was the one who gave the acceptance speech because the owner of the Steelers said, "Man, we owe it all to him." I didn't know that much about him. I really didn't. I didn't know he was that. And if he hadn't had the rough childhood that he had, that wouldn't have happened. You can take it all back to when he had some really rough years, which could have broken him. They really could have. He could have thrown in the towel. He could have quit. He could have said, "Man, this is too hard." But it wound up building him. And everybody attests that he's actually one of the sweetest people you can meet. His grandkids were shocked because they didn't know this side of him. They just know him as Pawpaw. They didn't know he had that that kind of mean streak in him. But you can trace it all back to the rough childhood. What should have broken him actually wound up building him. In our Christian life, your walk with the Lord, there will be strong resistance. It's not a cakewalk. We're not in heaven right now. If you're saved, your place in heaven is assured. It's there. It's there. It's promised. The way the Bible phrases it, you're seated with Christ in heavenly places. You're already there. That's why I put that on the sign out there. It says, "Are you risen with Christ?" Because that's Colossians 3:1, where it says, "If ye be risen with Christ." That's present tense. You're already risen if you're saved. It's sure. Like there's no doubt about it. Can't lose it. But we walk on this earth where there's lots of problems. Ask David. And there's going to be strong resistance. Like David, like Joe Green, don't let it stop you. I can't tell you how many times I have entertained the thought of quitting. I've entertained the thought of just quitting the Lord altogether. Listen, the thought pops up from time to time. It does. You'll have a very sad day, have a bad day. Have a string of bad days. Have a string of sad days. It can, I tell you, it can be, I've heard Brother Bob talk about his experience in Washington State. Wasn't a lot of people getting saved for some reason. Not a lot of people responding to the gospel. It was a lot different than when he was in New Mexico. When he was in New Mexico, lots of people responded well to the gospel. They were able to start 2 churches. Things were wonderful there. Not perfect. They had their problems. But, there was some encouragement. He went up to Washington State. Nobody was responding. And then he said it rained every day. So it was just miserable. Don't let it stop you. I don't know what trials you're going to have. I don't know what kind of strong resistance is going to come, but it is going to come. Don't let it stop you. I can remember when I was a little kid, my dad used to make me haul wood. He hated me. Can't believe it. He made me haul hay. It's because he hated me. I know why. I got it. I figured it out. No, actually, he wasn't too hard on me. He didn't put too much on me. Looking back, I realized he did most of the work. I had jobs to do, but he did most of it. He wasn't being overwhelming to me. I'm pretty sure he was doing it because he loved me. We'd go out there, we'd cut some trees down. He had this wood splitter. He'd let me run it. He started training. That thing was fun. It's not a toy, Daniel. It's not a toy. I had to remind myself of that. It's not a toy. But that was a lot of fun, and we would split wood, and we would stack. He would teach us how to stack it. There's actually an art to that. There's going to be strong resistance in our Christian life. Don't let it stop you. And the devil's going to try to tell you it's because your dad hates you, or it's because so-and-so hates you, or it's because this thing's going wrong. The devil's going to be right there, and you ought to quit. You just ought to quit walking with the Lord. It's not working out too well, is it? Things haven't been going so well for you. That's what he's going to say. He says it to me. Things haven't been going so well for you. Why don't you just throw in the towel and quit? It's at those times you got to run a little harder. I tell you, it's nice. I just thought of this when you're working out, when you have they call it a spotter, when there's a person there to encourage you. A person there to say, you got this, push it. Because everything in your body is going to say, you don't have this. If you don't let it stop you, if you keep walking with the Lord, despite the resistance, you will wax stronger and stronger. And before you know it, I look at where I'm at today as opposed to when I started walking with the Lord. I can see the difference. I can see the progress. I don't always see the progress, but I can see it. I can see what the Lord has done. I can see He's been putting a little bit more on me at a time. Just a little more. Not too much. Just a little more, and it builds me, prepares me for things. And I can wax stronger and stronger. Let God build you. Don't let the devil break you. Stick with God no matter what. And I want to leave you with one verse in Romans. Romans chapter 8. As we close. Verse, we all know Romans 8:28, but look at verse number 31. It goes right along with Romans 8:28. Romans 8:28, and we know that all things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are called according to His purpose. All things work together for good to build us. But verse 31, what shall we then say to these things? If God be for us, who can be against us? What an encouraging reminder. If God be for us, who can... All these things that resist us, all these things that are against us, and there's lots of things against us. But if God be for us, who cares? Who can be against us? Really, in the end, we win. Because in the end, God wins. If God's for us, who can be against us? I want to ask everyone to stand, every head bowed, every eye closed. morning, maybe you've been struggling in your Christian life. David had struggles. We all have struggles. Won't you rededicate your life to the Lord this morning? Won't you say, Lord, here I am. I want to walk with you. I want to get serious with you. I want to give myself to you this morning. If you're here this morning and you don't know Jesus Christ as your personal Lord and Savior, you need to receive Him. You need to begin your walk with Him. If I could encourage Christians this morning to keep walking with Him. Encourage yourself in the Lord. Heavenly Father, I just want to lift these folks up to you. I ask you to have your way with them. Those who are listening. Lord, whoever needed this message, Lord, I think we all need it to some degree, but Lord, whoever might be really struggling, I pray that you'd reach out to them and encourage them, Lord. There is strong resistance. We know this. But Lord, help them to stick with you. David stuck with you no matter what. Lord, help us to stick with you. Encourage us. Strengthen us, Lord. Lift us up. Carry us. Lord, help us to make a conscious decision that we want to walk with you, Lord. We ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
5:34.